All right, everyone. So here it is. I did it too. I did your assignment because I am a role model. Okay, here we go. So I chose prompt number, let's see, I chose prompt number 2, which is the one about mood. So I chose this prompt because it is the one that most fit. I think it most fits with the qualities that I identified as I made my way through the story the first time. So I just kind of went with what I saw, which was this very drastic shift in mood as the story went along. So I just used that to lead me toward theme. I will show you what I did with the story. So I used pretty much all of these strategies. I chunked the text, I highlighted some things, I annotated along the way, and in my own personal note taking, I also created some visualizations, some graphic organizers to help me. So I used all 4 of those approaches in different ways. So here we go. Here's the story. So as you can see, it's a little messy. I don't expect you to necessarily understand what my all my markings are, because they're, for me, they're supposed to make sense to me, not necessarily to you. But the things that you can see that I highlighted, everything that I highlighted has something to do with either light or color or warmth. So I noticed along the way that that McCarthy was developing changes in mood through shifts in light, color, and warmth. So I went through and I identified along the way shifts in mood that had to do with light, color, and warmth. And I'm going to use those things later in my plan as well. Other things I did, obviously, you could see like how I chunked the text and then annotated each of those chunks to explain to myself what kind of changes are occurring in each part of the text. I think if I was gonna do it very simply, it goes like in the first. I'm gonna chunk off this first paragraph because I'm gonna do something special with that. But it's basically a shift from light in the first half to dark in the second half. Pretty much those 2 halves. And this story, I kind of see it as like this descent into darkness for this boy that changes him, his relationships, changes his psychological state, and changes the physical world in which he exists. And this is just my own personal notes that show some of my thoughts to myself. Over here, just some wording that I think is interesting. Just some different, there's that light, dark, and then I actually chunked out the last paragraph of the story to show that things kind of turn gray for him. His mind is this gray place where all color has kind of been sucked out of it. I talked a little bit about relationships, the physical world, the psychological state that has shifted. I kind of just bulleted those ideas. And then over here is kind of like my plan that I'm going to show you in a second. So what I did was sketched out the kind of the order in which I want to address ideas. I'm going to talk about light, I'm going to talk about color, I'm going to talk about warmth, and then finally I'm going to talk about this twist that occurs at the end of the story as well. And then here's my theme down here. What I determined was a theme that says humanity is inherently destructive, and we often act without recognition or regard for the destruction left in our wake. So the idea is that throughout the course of this story, I see the boy is both a destroyer and he's observing destruction that has occurred, that other people have created, and through both his own action and the actions of others, other things are destroyed, including his relationships with people, his psychological state, and the physical world that he's a part of. So here is my plan. So the plan is very simple. This My approach to creating a plan is that I'm going to give myself just like the bare minimum amount that I know I'm going to need in order to guide myself through the writing itself. So I want to make sure I know the big idea, which is the theme. I want to know what I'm going to be writing about in each of the body paragraphs, most likely. I'm not even writing topic sentences here. I could do that. I maybe probably should do that, but I can't really do that very well on this presentation maker, so I'm not doing that here. But that's something I would probably do on a sheet of paper. But then what else I'm giving myself is just the ideas that I'm gonna talk about in each of these paragraphs. So I'm talking about what's in the text in terms of the shift from bright to dark that's occurring and how that leads to destruction of the character's psychological state. So I'm going to talk in the second paragraph about shift in mood reflected through shifts in color and how that leads to a destruction of the natural world. I'm going to talk about shifts in warmth and how that demonstrates destruction of relationships. Then the twist that I'm going to talk about involves the first paragraph, which if I know I'm doing a theme right, if I'm considering the entirety of the text, I'm not ignoring that first paragraph, but I'm actually just dealing with it last because I think that last paragraph does something interesting. It kind of presents us with it shows us a twist in not like a twist that occurs at the end. It's just a realization that we don't come to until the end, and we're able to reflect back on that first part of the story that we read and didn't really see the relevance of at the time that we read it. But it's not until we get to the end do we realize that this kind of descent into darkness that the boy experienced throughout the text that created all of this destruction within himself and outside of himself and between him and his family, perhaps. The twist is this here, that the boy was already there, and he didn't even know it, and we didn't even know it at the time. That the boy himself was a destroyer in that first paragraph. That the boy himself had already experienced, even in that paragraph, we see him going from the light outside world into the dark outhouse to create that destruction. So that first paragraph is actually what's called it's a microcosm. That's a literary term. It's a small thing that's representative of the whole. So that first paragraph and the destruction he creates there and the shift from light to dark that happens there is actually representative of what we see happening in the larger story with the larger scale descent into darkness and the destruction that occurs. So we can look back and see that the boy, as I said in my theme, was actually inherently destructive. He was always capable of it. He was always doing it, and he was doing it already before he realized that it was something that was happening out there in the larger world, and that it was something that is just kind of at least according to this author, it's sort of a feature of humanity, is that it's just something that we do whether we like it or not. That's who we are. Destroyers. What an uplifting story. I hope this helped you. I hope this helped you to see the different ways in which you can approach a text. Good luck.